So we're doing this then, Beth.
We are Johnny Quirk. We are. The band is back together.
It's been a while, but I know obviously we've been working quite hard on something else recently, but this is the first time we're doing video together since obviously, your own podcast. And it's really good to be doing this. I think, we've got some really interesting topics to talk over and looking forward to doing this.
For sure. I can't quite believe we're here once again. Fourth time round. So it's exciting.
Fourth time around. I know.
Collaborating once again.
Very lucky as well.
Yeah, get rid of 3 and go for number 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
That's actually fact.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about lots of things over the coming weeks.
Yeah, we are. I mean, ultimately, for people who don't know what we're doing here at Something Else, we're basically very AI focused, but we're trying to, help humans survive and thrive in this world of AI. And what that is, not looking at everything with a fully technical lens, which, I think a lot of people get scared by AI. A lot of people think it's all about kind of, technology. We're trying to basically bring out the human stories. We're going to hopefully show people how they can use AI best in their lives to ultimately just do really well with the technology. So, we're going to be discussing everything from careers, because that's such an important part of people's lives, life alignment. We're going to be talking entrepreneurship. I'm sure this is going to get cut out here, Beth, but this is a good way to start.
No, it's a good intro, isn't it? Because I think at the end of the day, we've had so many conversations recently with lots of different people about AI and how it's impacting their lives. And I think we've felt that there's not been a place out there that really is helping people just understand it at a human level in a real way in terms of your day to day. And like you say, that covers career and personal life as well. And I think that's the intersection that we're trying to come in and help people in. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at it, it's happened across technology over the last 20, 30 years. It's the normal person in the street who's potentially the last person to adopt it. They become the users of that technology. And, it's big tech firms that are in control of it. They're the one making the decisions. They're working with governments to make these decisions. But ultimately, it'll be the average person in the street, the human being who has to deal with the fallout, whether that's from, job disruption, whether that's from life disruption, from massive socioeconomic issues in terms of taxes and everything like that. So ultimately, we want to start building a narrative on this and help people really and understand where they're at in that cycle before it gets too late, because from past experience of technology, it's moved a little bit slower than this in the past. We have this famous thing called Moore's Law, where technology every 18 months would advance. And that was basically down to, microchips getting smaller, but also more kind of impactful over time. When it comes to AI, let's face it, new models are coming out every single month, going faster. And that's disrupting everything. It's like a moving target. It is very, very difficult for people to understand, what's coming next and understanding, the impact of that. And that comes from individuals, but also business owners as well.
Absolutely.
We all look at, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, anything like that. Right now, it's a faceless text box, which you fill in, very similar to mobile technology when that started. But this is only really the beginning. Over the next kind of coming months and years, it's going to really advance and become incredibly embedded in every single person's life as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head there.
I'll take that.
In terms of, the world is changing faster than we're really prepared for. And, if we look at some of the statistics, 54% of UK firms now are actively using AI in 2026. And that's really shot up from last year, which I think it was around 35%. So it's that kind of, urgency in terms of what's happening within the UK and obviously the global market within careers that I think is probably one of the biggest conversations right now. And it's that, what is happening to your job, what is happening to your company, what is happening to your industry as a result of AI.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, I think there was a stat out and it said something like, 1 million London jobs are at risk. Don't get me wrong, sounds like a newspaper headline. It probably was. But I know that's enough for Sadiq Khan to get involved and be like, look, we need to take this disruption or potential disruption, seriously.
Yeah.
And, you're going to find that in hubs like London, New York,
Mm,
where ultimately a lot of it is about professional services all
yeah.
being clustered together, and that's really helped. The only issue there is when you use AI technology. I'm thinking about things off the top of my head like accountancy, law firms, anything
Mm,
like that. Anything that really doesn't need a creative brain, and it's all fairly, like incremental changes, but also kind of, pattern recognition. A
yeah.
computer and AI can replace that. So I think
Mm,
that's where that's going to be found to be quite difficult, really. The disruption is where these big hubs like London and New York, where they're so reliant
yeah.
on professional services,
Yeah.
because, like if you don't need humans to do that job, then there is
Mm,
only so many subsidies you can do to keep them in a job for so long before
yeah.
companies and governments go, well, we don't need to do that. We need to retrain you. You need to think about
Mm,
retraining. You need to think about what else you're going to do. So, yeah, it's a really interesting time where we're in right now. I don't think we're quite where people, have to be completely concerned going, oh, my job's
yes.
going to go overnight. But
Yeah.
we're definitely a canary in the coal mine kind of area where we've talked about this in the past.
Mm,
Friends who were like translators have, like recently lost their roles. Copywriters lost their
yeah.
jobs.
Really struggling journalists. Yeah.
Yeah, journalists, graphic designers,
Yeah.
and it's probably just more chipping away, I think, at those jobs. It's not like all of a sudden overnight, like everything's gone, but you
Mm,
can see it starting to happen really. Why get a
yeah.
graphic designer that, took 20 hours to do this project and we're doing this when I can do a mock up and I can do this, or I
Yeah.
can even pay for a specialist AI tool that is very
Mm,
good.
yeah. Do you feel that your point? It made me think. I don't. You might not have watched this recently, but like the new Devil Wears Prada 2 film.
Cleo, my daughter,
No.
went to see
Yeah.
this, and my wife, yeah. So,
There
but
you
I
go.
haven't seen it myself. It worth
But
seeing?
it was yeah, definitely, highly recommend. But it was obviously it was quite topical in that because Andy, like, lost her job. She was a journalist and, like, the film in that, like, started about kind of the impacts that AI in the world is having it on journalism, and then
Yeah.
obviously how she then adapted and went back to her old job, and she created kind of a new place for journalism within I forgot the name of the magazine. In the magazine that she worked at. Anyway, I digress. But I guess my thought with this is like, even though like potential like industries and careers are having to change, do you feel that, I guess, do you feel like there's opportunities still though within these types of careers? So in that, you've still got your skill set, and yes, there might be kind of less jobs available, but can I take that skill set and apply it in different ways in order to make it so that I am still competitive as an individual in the market?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's gonna have to be the mindset of the normal person now
Yeah.
is, how do I first take stock of where I'm at right now? Then
Mm,
it's gonna be a case of repackaging my skills and strengths that I currently have. If you were to basically go along to the job center now and go, "This is what I've always done through my life," but they say,
mm.
"Sorry, there's no jobs there," you're gonna have to almost, like, disrupt yourself.
Yeah,
You're gonna
exactly.
have to be that, and then you've got 2 options really, I think, in my mind right now. You can either repackage that up and go, "Right, okay, if I've had accountancy skills or journalism skills or whatever,
Mm,
what are gonna be the current jobs that need those sorts of skills, or even the
mm,
future AI jobs that, or in future jobs in AI world that's gonna need those skills?"
yeah.
Or you go, "Do you know what? I've got all these skills. I've worked for people for 20 years. Now I'm gonna set up my own business, and that's what I'm
Mm,
gonna do." Because it doesn't, if there's no jobs there and you keep reading
yeah.
about it in the press, oh, someone applied for a job, but there were 300 applications, or I've spent 6 months applying for a job. When does the penny drop where you go, do you know what? I could have probably set up my own business in that time, or my own
Yeah,
side hustle, or my own consultancy, or whatever. And that's probably
definitely.
going to have to be the mindset of the day is that, don't just jump into another job where, again, you might lose that in 6 to 12 months. It
Mm,
could be
mm,
more of like, do you know what? It's going to be hard, especially if you never run your own business before, but that's
yeah.
gonna almost future-proof you in a way.
I think that's really scary though, isn't it? Like it's, and that is almost a topic that I think we're going to discuss as well. But it's that
Yeah,
like, if you've never ran your own business, or even if you've never like kind of considered what other opportunities there are based on your skill set, like that is actually really scary. Like some people have worked in the same industry for years. They've worked
yeah.
in the same career for years. They've been comfortable in that career. They've enjoyed it. And
Mm.
all of a sudden they're like facing this reality of like, actually like, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to upskill yourself in different ways in order to like continue to be competitive. And I think that is a really nerve-wracking and scary place to be, if you've never kind of had that guidance or never had that necessity before. And I think just to add to that as well, like just coming back to kind of, like the future of work and like AI training in businesses and things like that as well. Like one of my almost like questions to that is like, where should the responsibility lie in
Mm.
terms of having to understand this? Like, should it be me as an individual? I have a responsibility to myself to upskill myself, to understand my own skills, to make decisions on my own? Or should that be the responsibility of me in a business? So therefore it should be my employer to upskill
Yeah.
myself, to save my job, to give me support and skills that allow me to continue to work in this company. Because I think that's actually like a really, something that someone should be kind of sat there thinking
It's
about.
a massive it's a really important point, Beth, and I think there's a blind spot there right now because it's
Mm,
almost just like, put it this way, you wanna go and get your, like, wage put into your bank account at the end of every month for a
yeah.
job's worth
Yeah.
done. That's been the same as it's been for since the Industrial Revolution.
Mm,
You do your work for a month, you work hard, respect for the employer, you feel like
yeah.
you're moving forward, it's moving you on as an individual, you feel alignment, great. Fortunately, that is gonna change quite fast.
Mm,
And basically to answer your question, the first thing is, we should all be having to have this mindset right now. And like I said, it's the
mm,
people with that first mover advantage, which is going to be so important. People who right now are understanding what AI means for their jobs and careers, not to panic or not to get anxious about it or not to worry, but is to
yeah.
be proactive. They always say, action conquers anxiety. So people
Mm,
should be aware of that. On a business level, yes, investing in AI training, investing in all of these different areas is going to be very important if you've
yeah.
got to do that. The only problem, again, to use the word moving target, is that because AI is constantly evolving, you
Yes.
don't really know. You see all these things served to you on Insta, like AI accelerator, AI training, whatever. What are you going to do? Do the course, and then it's a month or two later, it's all changed. So,
Mm,
you've got that issue. I want to put this out there right now as well, because if you're a business owner, you're always
mm,
looking at the margins and how you can make more profit. Fortunately, the reality is if you've got 100 people in your team right now, in 2 years' time, you might need only 50 of those people. In
yeah.
3 years'
Yeah.
time, you only need 30 of those people. In, 5 years' time, you might need 15 of those people to run a
Mm,
business that size. And this could be anything from online services to logistics
mm,
to manufacturing. That's going to be a tricky play between how much an employer puts into that
yeah.
beyond like, obviously thinking, well, actually, I can save money on training and actually the cost of hiring a human being.
Yeah.
And just to put a third thing in there, don't forget governments, because
Yes.
governments are gonna need to keep people in employment because if their taxes dry up, you've got taxes dry up, you've got higher council tax bills to pay, because people aren't able to pay them. You're basically gonna
Mm,
have a situation where, there's gonna be less receipts coming in. You have to be
yeah.
giving out more benefits.
Yeah.
So it's not just like one side, it's all coming at governments, if this obviously
Yes.
happens and it dries up.
Yeah, what's the impact's gonna be? Yeah, from an overarching society perspective, because unemployment goes up, that is just gonna massively impact, well,
Yeah, so
everyone on a day-to-day
really,
basis.
yeah, you've got three things that are gonna happen there. The
Yeah.
individual should take control and start doing some individual research and training.
Mm,
Businesses should be aligned with this because they wanna train their staff, but I'll be honest with you, they ultimately are gonna try and find the most efficient way to run their business, and,
yeah,
that's the situation, and a government is gonna be absolutely terrified that, AI is gonna have mass disruption.
yeah.
There is a
You know
very sorry, no, carry on, Beth?
No, I was just gonna say, what's interesting? So one of the conversations that I had this week about AI and like, taking it on myself to like upskill myself
Yeah,
was that they said that they wanted to take the initiative to upskill and train themselves so that they could be more efficient in work, but they weren't willing to then talk to their employee about the efficiencies that they were making, because then they're fearful of the fact that the employee will go, well, what are you doing with your time then if you're saving so much time doing that? So therefore
yeah,
their job becomes vulnerable as a result of them actually taking efficiency, like them taking the initiative to
yeah,
make their role more efficient. So it's like there's almost like this, like, a tug and pull, if you will, between
yeah.
actually like someone even wanting to take the initiative to upskill and then being scared about telling their employer, which is just like such a weird mindset.
What you've just said sums up exactly where we are with AI. It's like
It's
the
insane.
thickest. Too clever. You hear
Yeah.
AI efficiency, but then if
Yeah.
you don't know how to prompt properly, you're typing a load of crap into things, you're just
Mm.
gonna get all that. Then you've got too much information for human brain to actually comprehend and change over.
Yeah,
Then you've
which actually
got
is just affecting your brain anyway as well.
Yeah, and then you've basically got employers who are gonna be like, "Right, is this great or is this bad?" I found it recently with a client, as you know, I do consulting as well, and, we're
Mm.
we're working on some business proposals for some, cross-border partnerships, and I put together AI. I used to use my brain quite a lot, but I couldn't
Mm.
almost work after doing this for a few hours. What bits I'd done and what bits were AI and what actually looked good and what sounded AI, or did I have to
Yeah.
soften it a bit, but should I make it more business-like or whatever? So, it's a strange situation we're in right now where it's all a little
Mm.
bit like the Wild West. It's like,
Yes.
gonna need stuff to settle down. It's gonna need people to understand, the models better. And I think
Yeah.
this is almost the next stage is where, we call this like AI wrappers, where a
Yeah.
business is building on top of the API of like a Claude or a ChatGPT, OpenAI.
Mhm.
Ultimately, that's going to be for copywriting. That's going to be
Mm.
for laws. This is going to be for note taking. So they're clearly
Mhm.
using what's under the bonnet, but they're building around the algorithms and making it better for that specific task. I think
Yeah.
that's where it's going to get better as opposed to general, let's type anything into Claude,
Mm.
and obviously, we're not going to get onto agent technology in this chat today, but,
No.
there is a lot of this stuff coming down the line is what I'm trying to say that, like employers, employees and governments have got to get their head
Mm.
around. And unfortunately, it's a little bit of head in the sand situation from, I think, everybody right now.
So just to come onto a thought of I'm sat there listening to this conversation that we're having. What would you recommend, or what would we recommend someone who's sat there listening to this right now start to do? If AI is kind of, still this place of I'm not sure how this is going to impact my career. I feel like it is going to impact my career. I'm not sure what my skills actually are, which a lot of people don't really understand that. What do you think the first kind of step should be for that person?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put two things in here. I think the first thing I would probably do is try and get clear on what I want out of life. So I
Mm.
probably would almost just have to take a bit of time in my
Yeah. Fair.
brain mindset to think, do you know what? Mass disruption is coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Everything from societal to employment, all of this sort of stuff is happening because AI is going to become embedded. A bit like the iPhone when that came out, how it's completely
Mm.
transformed everything in social media. But this is on a new level. So I probably would think about, almost like, depends. It doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.
Yeah.
What do I want the next 10, 20, 30 years? What do I want my life story to be about? Who do I want to be? Like,
Mm.
where do I want to take things? And be very, very clear on that and then almost
Mm.
work backwards in terms of that. On the second thing, I don't want to obviously make this a full advertising thing for what we've built here at Something Else. But, the first task I would take is, go onto our website, which is why we
Mm.
built it, which is to
Yeah.
create a conversation, do somethingelse.ai, and you can basically type in your current job role, you type in, a little bit of past history, and what it
Mhm.
will do is it will give you a 5-year AI risk warning or rating where basically, it's not there to scare you, but it can literally give
No.
you, based on the latest AI technology, what potentially your 1 year, 3-year, and 5-year risk rating will be based on your industry. So at
Yeah.
least you've got a bit of breathing space to think, do you know what? Actually, where am I at right now? I've got time to put the work in. I've got time to consider where things are going. And then,
Yeah.
of course, on our website, we fit in everything like industry information, potentially some
Mm.
new courses people might want to do, those sorts of pathways and roadmaps to potentially, like what you might want to do. So I would
Yeah.
just basically say the idea is take action, understand what disruption is coming. And
Yeah.
ultimately, if you start today or tomorrow or next week, that's much better than starting to think about this in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, when the
Yeah.
people who are the accountants, who maybe, if you're accountant, maybe other accountants have already gone on and done this sort of stuff, you can
Mm.
get ahead of the curve really and really just start thinking about that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the again, not to kind of push the product because that's not the goal of these videos, but for me, the transferable skill tool is a really helpful tool. For me personally, I have a lot of skills, but when you actually see them kind of in black and white, it kind of changes your mindset a little bit. Like, and I think sometimes it's hard to actually really see and understand your skill set and how that can apply to other opportunities, be it within your existing industry or outside your industry. And I guess to come back to your point on like starting your own business or starting your own side hustle, or even just starting a hobby that you
Yeah.
think could genuinely like fuel some passion inside you. You never know where that then is going to go. So I think just like, pairing to your point on like, where is it you want your life to go? And then understanding what your current skill set is, what your current passions are. And then
Right.
kind of starting taking some small steps towards that, like, or towards kind of a future like direction that you want to build for that life. And I feel like it doesn't need to necessarily be like really overwhelming yet.
Yeah.
We don't want people to be sat there listening to this, getting overwhelmed or becoming more anxious. Like it's really kind of almost an exciting thing to be able to like, tune into yourself and go, actually, what do I want from my life? Like, what do I love doing? Like, what really like interests
Yeah.
me? And like, that's a really nice way to start, I think, the journey that you're going to go on in the next, 3 to 5 years, because it is
It
happening.
is. Yeah. I mean, look, if something, like I said, like a tidal wave is going to come and disrupt it, you start planning, don't you? That's ultimately
Yeah.
what you got to do. Don't get me wrong, you probably run probably fast, but
Yeah.
like we're not
Yeah.
expecting anything quite
Tsunami,
as
tidal
fast.
waves.
Exactly. It's more like, right, okay, it's on the horizon, time to do something about it. And I think you're right. But actually, do you know what? I think AI and where this technology is at right now
Yeah.
should be framed as an incredible opportunity, for people.
100%, Johnny.
The
Yes.
technology is there, like without being too morbid, the current thing over the last 150, 200, 300 years has been you start, you're obviously born, you go through being a kid,
Mm.
schooling, potentially university, then hopefully, maybe our parents' generation or beyond, you maybe get a job for life, or you wouldn't change job that often,
Yeah. Yeah.
get your pension, live a few years, and then it's on to the cycle of the next one.
Yeah.
Right now, as even we know over the last 10, 20 years, people are changing jobs, much more
Mm.
regularly. That's the
Mhm.
situation. And people are wanting a bit more out of life. So
Mm.
even going back to employers and education, when you're seeing your careers advisors as a student, even they won't really know
Yeah.
what to predict now. And, like maybe this is what people need now is like career advice in their 30s, 40s, 50s to actually think,
Yeah.
do you know what? Life is so many more years left in the tank,
Yeah.
and the barriers have never been so low as to, transition into a new role or
Yeah.
create a new role,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
you want to vibe code up an app, whether you want to just literally start a website in 10 minutes using Claude, whether you want to
Or
unbundle all of your
lovable.
experience.
Yeah. Sorry. I got excited because I created something on Lovable this week and I was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
having worked in tech and design and development all my career, like all of a sudden being able to like genuinely create a website that in less than 2 hours that I could have published like that. I was
Yeah.
like, this is game changing.
And what's mind blowing is that this technology is so in the early stages. We're so early. A few friends who are very much into the deeper side of this on the tech side, and they're saying their biggest
Mm.
concern is like the security elements of it. They're not quite
Yeah.
figured
Fair.
out and the likes of that.
Yeah.
So when you vibe code up, especially if you're taking SaaS payments or whatever, there isn't that underlying. But that stuff they'll figure out.
Yeah.
That stuff they will do. And this goes from everything from basic HTML now to vibe coding up, God knows what. And that's going to create so many new jobs in the future
Yeah.
and new industries and everything that we can't even imagine now.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought
Definitely.
it 20 years ago? People were going, oh, yeah, I'm a social media manager or I'm a community
Yeah.
manager or I'm a whatever.
Yeah. So
It
true.
just wouldn't exist. And I think this is where you'll
Mm.
start to see the fragmentation off and the niching down in certain
Yeah.
areas and ultra niche.
I think that to me is the most exciting thing about AI is it opens the door to like imagination, to creativity, to the all the human bits, if you will. Like, not to be kind of cliche with it, but like, I do genuinely believe that like some of the most kind of influential people of the future now are going to be the ones that have the broadest imagination and are just willing to kind of try new things,
Yeah.
because these tools genuinely unlock so much opportunity for someone that maybe is sat there going, oh my God, I've always had so many ideas, but like, I don't know how to like start with it. But actually
Yeah.
these tools you can get them for like £22 a month. And suddenly you're able to create something that you've been imagining for years. And it's that bit for me that like genuinely gets me excited, because I think that there's people out there that will really be able to kind of take advantage of these things that they've not been
Yeah.
able to before.
Human autonomy is going to
Mm,
be the buzzwords of the next 10, 20, 30
yeah.
years, really. It doesn't matter if you are a student or university or whatever. I mean, you might not even go to university, because what's the point?
Mm,
What you could have
yeah,
done in
yeah, yeah.
4 years, you could learn in 3 months or something like that,
Yeah,
and do that.
which is
And
mad.
yeah, don't get me wrong. If you're going to be a doctor or
Yeah,
or
please go
something
to
which needs,
university
yeah,
because we
don't
want to
come and
be
see me
safe.
for leg surgery or something. It's like, I learned this on YouTube. You can see it now,
I
but
could open up your heart now.
yeah,
No.
but if you've got yeah, exactly. It's like, "Oh, we'll just send it off to a robot factory or something to fix this." But
Sorry.
yeah, I mean, if you've got an idea, you can run with it and you can do that, and it will come down to the differentiation product, the marketing, the brand, like everything always
Mm,
has been. Building something, it's the route to market to get the product ready is gonna be there, especially in software anyway.
yeah.
But I think, where we see this technology going, it just lowers the barriers. If you're in
Mm,
Africa or LATAM or
mm,
Asia, and you basically, you don't have to raise hundreds of millions or something, to actually do this. You don't even need to
yeah.
raise seed investment. There is an amazing opportunity to be autonomous and actually just basically say, do you know what? I'm going to take control of my life now. And unfortunately, like I said, to loop back to where we're at, that's going to need to be what people are going to have to do anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you're applying for jobs and the jobs don't exist, or you can't even
Mm,
get an entry level job, because an entry level job is going to be very, very difficult nowadays. You read
yeah.
about it in the press. People can't get there on the first rung of the ladder,
Yeah.
because actually they're competing with people in their 50s now who are trying to,
Mm,
go into those roles as well. So entrepreneurship, taking control of your destiny, just literally, being really up to date with technology about what's happening and actually just going
mm.
for it is going to have to be done really. So that's going to really be the order of the day.